We are back on another project, Innovate Coatings. I got Brian George behind me, wiping down the counter. We got Mark over here, he's trying to head out on us, but that's all right, we got this handled. This is gonna be a cool project because we're doing one of our standard kits, which is basically base coat and highlights. Super easy kit to do, but we have a massive countertop, thick faces. We're gonna show you exactly what we do to create beautiful faces every single time and super cool finishes. What Brian's doing now, cleaning, he's sanding, getting everything perfectly clean. We're gonna do an extra thick coating on here. What that's gonna do is it's gonna give you way more product on the top that allows it to flow down across your faces, and your faces are gonna look way better. The product's gonna be thicker on the top, debris, dust, stuff that falls in it, roller hairs, it's gonna be able to sink into the mix. And so I always recommend doing thicker. Brian always does, he loves it. His jobs always turn out flawless. Edges always look beautiful. So our standard kits, where you do a base coat, spread that out, base coat, and then you come and add your highlights. We typically minimum 4 ounces per square foot of material of epoxy. We're probably gonna be at probably like 6.5 ounces per square foot. There's just more product to flow, move, marbleize, coat your edges, all that stuff. So this counter, right, we showed up, it was just raw wood. Maybe throw some before pics up so you can see what this looked like before. It's got a bunch of holes, knots, it's just not a quality finish wood. And so you're always gonna have more prep with that. So we flooded it at 6 gallons. It's pretty level. This from like right here, like this section kind of tapers off a little bit, and then this corner from like right here, it starts to kind of bow up just a tad bit right here. And so again, he's doing an extra 1.5 gallons of product to account for the bow right there, the little bit of taper here. And then when we do our veins, we're also gonna be trying to do the veins knowing that the resin's gonna wanna flow that way a little bit. But yeah, we're pretty much ready, so we're gonna get started. We'll mix up the primer. Primer's simple, 2-to-1 ratio. We add 10% of water. We're doing black, obviously, because we're gonna do a black base. We'll roll that on real quick, and then we'll go over the mixing, and then we'll kind of just film this. James will just film, and I'll talk as needed. But yeah, this will be a cool project. The counter's gonna look really cool when it's done, and the floor's all black. They got these cool custom pendants that were made locally. And so when this thing's all put together and done, we'll try to get back in here and get some shots for you guys of how this turns out when it's all finished. Real quick, all you contractors, if you're looking for ways to add revenue to your business, or maybe you want to start a new business, we have the answer. LeggariAcademy.com will teach you everything you need to know about the coatings industry. All right, so 8 ounces part A. B's the pigmented part, so shake this up good, especially if you're pouring out and not using the full kits. Add my 1.2 ounces of water, that's 10%. Just mix this by hand, super easy. We also pigmented. That's why the counter's black, that flood coat we did to level it. And we pigmented it black because we knew we were doing a black decorative coat. Ready to prime. Straight snap roller, de-shed it. Always good to get in the habit of de-shedding rollers. So while Brian's doing that, I'm gonna start basically getting the epoxy ready to mix. So when he's done and primer's done, we can just start mixing, make it real simple. So while Brian's priming, I'm gonna just get all the resin set up. Cool thing is since we're doing a 3-gallon kit in a 1.5, I can fit all that into one bucket. So I'm gonna dump all the part A's from the 3-gallon and the 1.5 into the bucket. I'm gonna pre-pigment it, I'm gonna add the pigment to it, get everything ready without adding the hardener, the part B. Once we add the hardener, we have to go and coat and dump it out of the bucket. So yeah, 4.5 gallons, and then we're gonna mix 48 ounces for our highlights. And I always like to, whenever we're measuring resin like this, add your pigments last. Because if you put your part A in, add your pigment, it's gonna mess up, it's gonna move the amount in the resin on the line up. And then if you add pigment to the original mark that you needed, you're gonna be shy hardener. So we always, when we're measuring out of containers, we always pigment it last. Cool thing about the jugs is we know they're already measured, the correct amounts in them, and so we can add pigment into the part A before we add the part B. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this is the point where you wanna get it before you add the hardener. Brian's got everything ready on this job for us. So once I mix this, we can dump it out, start coating. So 3P2 process, always mix your resin using our 3P2 process. What this entails is once I add the part B, I'm gonna start at the top, spin the drill all the way down to the bottom of the bucket. Once I hit the bottom, I'm gonna go around once or twice, then I'm gonna come up slow. Once I hit the top, slow down the speed of the drill, go around once or twice. That stands for 1. I'm gonna do that 3 times. Then the letter P stands for pour into a secondary mixing container, which I have right here. Scrape everything out of the first one, get everything into the secondary mixing container, and then I'm gonna repeat going up and down 2 more times the exact same way. That's the 3P2 process. What that ensures is we know for sure our resin is thoroughly mixed. We can dump the bucket upside down. We're not gonna have any unmixed product drain off the sides of the bucket onto our project. Unless I scrape my sides, scrape the bottom really, really good, you're always gonna have unmixed product on those sides, and you run the chance of getting that on your project. And then you have soft, sticky spots that need to be addressed, fixed. If they're too bad, you need to gouge them out, refill those spots, sand them, recoat the counter. We want you guys to avoid that, so always do this process. Counter's still kind of sloped this way from like here to here, even though we put like over a 1/2 inch of resin buildup on this whole thing. So we're gonna tape this back edge just to keep resin from just running down. Get our veins done, get everything rolled out. We'll just kind of play it by ear when we want to pull it. But that's gonna just keep resin from just flowing back towards that way. So there's always ways we can manipulate the flow of the resin also. Okay, so we got the beads out. Notice, pretty even as far as how they're spreading out. You can always go back and add to the beads. You got that squeegee, this is gonna start dripping off. So Brian's gonna start spreading it with the knot squeegee. So what I'm gonna do is just go around and make sure we're not just losing resin off the face and push it back. Apply a little pressure. You can use rollers as squeegees too. And I'm just pushing the resin back from the edge because we don't need to just let resin flow over the edge right now. We're still trying to get the top all leveled out. A little bit's fine, but we don't want a big old pile just draining and flooding down on the floor. So the reason we get drips like this is from the surface tension. If I slick this off all the way, get rid of any dry primer, it'll flow over evenly. And that's how we get those nice faces. Again, the reason we're doing it so thick is because that corner down there lips up. Even after flooding 6 gallons on here, we still got a slope to the back. So we want to make sure we have enough resin on here once we do our design to be able to flow over and coat all the edges. That's the biggest key. Yeah, this is enough to pigment 1.5 gallons. We're ready to go. So, one thing, highlights, we don't have to use all this. It's just nice to have enough to where you don't have to stop or have someone mix more because you need more. You can always add more, you can't take the color out. So we scoop it. I want to get a decent amount on there, and then I'm just gonna drizzle it onto the counter. Not perfectly straight either, I want to be random. So real simple, scoop, just like that. Boom, we got one vein. Right, got one there. Thinking maybe come out here, Brian?
Yeah, I was thinking kind of like that.
But we want to have space in between, right?
Yeah, because I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to kind of get
Okay,
it
so I'm going to run one right here and just stop it.
Yeah.
And then I'll run one like down the line.
You know?
So I got one going that way, got one going that way. I'm going to run one down this line. Then we're gonna go, probably do like a 1/2 and a 1/2. So I'm always thinking of, you know, where to do the veins at. So what me and Brian are doing now is going around fine tuning. He's telling me where he wants a little more highlight color. I'm adding a decent amount, like I said, to where the veins are coming over the face. And then he's just going back and kind of blending that in. By doing this, this leaves a lot of that color on the surface to flow over, and that's what creates the veins down the faces. We wouldn't want the veins to just stop and then all our faces are black. Like, we want them to look like this, more natural. We're happy with the veins, the pattern. We got enough out there. And again, remember, we can always start with less color. We can always add more, like we went through and added more in spots. But man, I'm telling you, if you add too much at once and you start blending, it overpowers the counter, you're kind of screwed. And so just keep that in mind. But now I was going around checking. So this was like the thick spot where it's built up. It's gonna flow a little heavy here, but if I come over here, it's not very thick here. It's barely flowing over, so we're ready to pull the tape. And it's probably been 40 minutes since we mixed the base coat. And so we're gonna pull the tape now, let it flow, see how the veins do. If everything checks out and we're happy with it, we're gonna get into dispersing the surface and creating those cells. See that? Super thick through here. Right behind you. So if we look at the front, see how it's not even? We want to roll that out. So next step, we're gonna disperse the surface. That's gonna create those cells. Try to avoid hitting the face because it's thin. Small to medium drops, barely pulling the trigger. Right, that was like a solid brass vein. Now it's got those black cells in it. Looks really, really cool. And the sooner you can disperse it, the more effects you're gonna get. The longer the resin sits there, starts to tack up, you won't get as good at dispersing cells. But cool thing, look at our veins. We got that nice solid color coming right off those veins, like this was cut out of a real slab. And that's kind of the look you want to get. And so that's why pouring extra thick, like I said, and adding highlights a little bit back onto the counter on the top, that's gonna level out and just constantly let it flow over. You're gonna have extra product to get those veins looking good. So next step, we let the isopropyl evaporate for about 10 minutes. We're gonna mist the surface with denatured alcohol. If you look, we have a few bubbles out here. And we created a lot of bubbles from the squeegee and blending, dumping highlights on, blending them, so we're creating bubbles in the resin. But we wanna make sure these don't stay. A lot of times they'll pop on their own, but we want to mist the surface with denatured without flooding it. We don't want to muddy out the veins, right? If we spray too much dispersing or denatured on this, it'll muddy out these veins and they just won't look as cool. So we want to let the isopropyl evaporate for about 10 minutes, mist it with denatured, real light. If we need to hit it twice, let it evaporate for a couple minutes and then go mist it again. All right, so I'm gonna go, that's pretty much it, guys. So next, basically we just wanna fine tune these faces, make sure we got bubbles eliminated on the surface. If we can stick around long enough to scrape the drips, we don't have to sand. But the main thing is don't just finish your counter, edges look good, and leave. Stick around for a little bit, right? Because we came back 20 minutes later and I had to hit a bunch of spots on these faces to make them look good. You don't want to come back the next day assuming they're good and then you had some drips that you could have addressed. You can address them when it's wet. You can't when it starts to get sticky and tacky. But yeah, color's great, veins look good. Pretty cool stuff. So that's pretty much it for today. Tomorrow will be top coat.
All right, guys, we're back on the job today. Tyler's out, so I'll be filling in for him, talking a little bit about what we got going on. We're gonna sand everything, probably like 320 grit on the top. Hit these with 320, maybe 120 down here with the drips to buzz those off real quick. Just be super careful on these edges. You might hit them by hand just because this is the thinnest spot. All this is pretty durable. Just be careful with sanding and watch what you're doing.